The Babylon Project was our last best hope for sci-fi, a self-contained podcast 1 hour long located on the internet, a place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere, a shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is the story of the last of the Babylon podcast. The year is 2016. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Egan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast.
Hello there, Babylon 5 fans. Welcome to the Babylon Project podcast once again. This is Raul Wybera with the inestimable Jim Arrowwood. How are you tonight, good sir?
I'm great. I'm better than great. I had a real interesting thing happen at school today. It was fifth grade band. They came in and sat down, and one of the students has named me Mr. Awesome Pants.
I thought you were going to say they came into class, sat down, and got their instruments ready to play.
Oh, well, he did that too, but he still dubbed me Mr. Awesome Pants. Now, I
Okay.
I don't know where this came from, but anyway, I guess I'll take it. It's better than...
Well, my wife's nickname was Mrs. Wybera-Cuda.
Oh, well, I'll put it this way. It's better than some of the other things I could be called, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Most certainly, and you never underestimate the inventiveness of snarky grade school kids.
Well, I'm a bit snarky myself at times, so I understand.
What episode are we talking about tonight?
Well, tonight we are going to look at the long Twilight struggle.
This is another, you keep saying this, well, I keep saying it at least, this is another fan favorite. But, this whole last half in particular of season 2 is kind of one big fan favorite. It's like each episode just gets better and better.
Oh, it's like getting hammered by Muhammad Ali over and over again. Just bam, bam, bam. Every episode is just huge.
Call me George.
Hey.
Yeah. And you know what? In some ways, this is just the setup episode for the end of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, it's not what you would call a huge action episode, though there certainly is some of that in it.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it's more of a setup episode than anything. And if you want an example of how to set up a finale, this is it.
Oh, yeah. It's just it, and I'll tell you what, it is loaded with boom.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of boom today.
Yeah.
Why don't you give our listeners an idea of what they are in for?
All right, very well.
Archive. Access initiated.
While close to defeat in their war with the Centauri, the Narn decide that they will make a desperate attack on a heavily guarded Centauri supply world. Even though this will leave the Narn homeworld wide open to attack, they believe that this might be their only hope to make significant gains against the Centauri. Unfortunately, the Centauri intercept a transmission outlining the attack, and Londo once again enlists the assistance of his allies, the Shadows, to defend the supply planet and allow the Centauri to launch a devastating attack on the Narn using mass drivers, a weapon that has been outlawed by almost every civilized race in the galaxy. The Narn finally surrender, And in a meeting of the Advisory Council and the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, Londo presents his conditions of the surrender, which include the removal of G'Kar from the Council as well as his arrest and trial as a war criminal. However, Londo's plans are thwarted because G'Kar has requested and has been granted sanctuary aboard the station. Drall, the controller of the machine on Epsilon 3, contacts Sheridan and offers him an alliance in the war against the forces of darkness that has been spoken of in previous episodes. Drall also tells Delenn to introduce Sheridan to the Rangers, which she does, but she also gives Sheridan equal control over all the Rangers in the area. Well, there it is.
Character, files, open.
There it is indeed. That's what I mean. It is sort of a setup for the final roller coaster ride, but it is a lot and it doesn't stop moving.
No, it is a boom, 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 boom episode. Just it's incredibly busy, but not hard to understand.
Right. It like I said, it's the perfect finale setup as far as I'm concerned. Now, guest stars, we've got a few this time.
Yeah, and some big ones too.
Oh yeah.
Starting out as Drall, we had John Shuck.
Right.
Anybody who knows John Shuck, his big break was, I think, MASH, the movie. And he, as far as science fiction's concerned, he's been in Star Trek 4, Star Trek 6, Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
He was in just about everything in the 70s.
Yeah, Babylon 5 twice as Drall.
Mm-hmm.
Voyager, and finally in Enterprise. So he's done a lot of Trek.
He's done a lot of Trek, but you've forgotten his two most important science fiction roles.
Well, enlighten me.
He played Herman Munster in the late 80s and early 90s.
Oh. Well.
For a few seasons. And let us not forget that absolutely fantastic science fiction show, Holmes and Yo-Yo.
Oh, you lost me.
Oh, gosh. Holmes and Yo-Yo, it made it through half of a first season in the mid-70s.
Okay.
He's playing a robot.
Oh.
An android.
See, I never saw that.
A police detective android.
Oh, wow.
His stomach opened up to get to his computer control panel, which basically was two calculators.
Oh, I see.
I mean, literally, one of them was actually had a printer in it, so you'd get the little printout. Okay, anyway, who else did we have?
All right. Riff Hinton as the ISN reporter, who also was on Alien Nation and also Star Trek Generations. He was a Klingon guard.
Okay. I am actually not that familiar with him.
Yeah.
At least as an on-screen actor.
Yeah.
But he's done a lot of voice work that I'm familiar with. So I will have to pay a little more attention to that. I know he was the computer voice in Eureka. He was voices in Peabody and Sherman, Rio, Ice Age, voice some. So he's done a lot of voice work that I've been familiar with.
Okay.
So I will have to pay a little more attention to that.
Neat.
Our next guest star is he really a guest? Does he really belong still on the guest star list?
Well, he is. He's not really appeared in that many episodes. William Forward, Lord Rifa. We've talked about him previously.
Right. He's in like half a dozen eps.
Yeah. For me, though, the biggie is William Morgan Shepherd.
Oh, yes.
War Master Justen, also playing G'Kar's uncle in that role.
Right.
And we have him. Right. We have him on Max Headroom, Star Trek Next Generation. He was Dr. Ira Graves on that one. Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. He was a Klingon commander. Quantum Leap, Sequest 2032, Babylon 5 in the first season as the Soul Hunter #1. He was in the Iron Man TV series, Biker Mice from Mars, Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek 2009 as the Vulcan Science Minister, and also in Doctor Who.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this guy's credits go back into the 60s.
Oh, well, if we read all his credits, we'd
be here all night.
We'd have to make this a two-parter.
Yep.
So I was kind of selective in choosing.
Now, what's funny is, he was the Soul Hunter in season 1.
Yes.
I would have loved to see him. He's the reason Soul Hunters have beards.
Ah. No, this guy's voice will identify him to me.
Absolutely will.
All I have to do is hear his voice. It's the same thing with J.G. Hertzler. I hear J.G. Hertzler's voice. I know who it is. He can be in any costume, and I'll know who it is.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? Did he even speak in Transformers? You'd mentioned, because he was Captain Witwicky.
Did I mention Transformers?
Did you?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. I can't remember if he actually had a speaking role in it. Because it was all flashback.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because he was talking about being all right.
Okay.
That's another spot that I remember him from too.
Ah.
Any way you cut it, that's an impressive guest cast this season.
Yes, it is.
That's an impressive guest cast this show.
It's huge.
Initiating plot analysis.
The episode itself.
Yeah.
The cast was huge, as you said, and the episode itself is huge.
Yes.
There's one thing in Babylon 5 that hasn't aged well. Their surface images of Centauri Prime. The CGI graphics at the beginning of the Centauri Palace.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, at that time, that was state-of-the-art work.
Well, our televisions couldn't handle it.
No, and that's it. It actually, if I pulled it up on my old 27-inch Sony, it looks a lot better on that old Trinitron than it does in widescreen format on my 50-inch plasma.
Yeah, they don't look
so
they don't look real good on new televisions, but
no.
Oh well.
Now a lot of the other strictly CGI still looks fantastic, but
yes,
that opens us up to Lord Rifa.
Yeah.
Oh yes, oh.
Yeah, we just love Rifa, don't we?
You love to hate him. It seems that this is almost a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, let's just say something changes between now and season 4, because the Emperor seems to be a bit more of a puppet figurehead at this point.
I would agree with
Cartagia?
that. Yes, I think he is. He's a bit. Well, we of course know what he's like in season 4, but a complete despot. But I think he's probably a little younger now, and maybe too young and untrained to actually take over the position.
Just a year, though. I wonder if it's a matter of Rifa holding him in check, and then with Rifa out of the picture in season 4, Cartagia is unleashed. Whatever's restraining him is just gone.
Well, that could be. Could be. And at any rate,
I will say this. No, go ahead.
All right, I was going to say, and Londo is home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that doesn't seem to happen for him much.
He doesn't seem real happy about it either.
No, and I think part of that has a little bit to do with the way Rifa just more or less just summoned him.
Yeah. Well, Rifa's he's gotten pretty smug.
Yeah, and a lot of hubris there. When you consider Londo's connections, and this is what's funny about it, is when you consider Londo's connections, you'd think the guy would be smart enough to have a little bit more restraint. I mean, Londo's got enough. If he's got the power to do the stuff that he has, he's got the power to be a serious threat.
Well, but Rifa's a manipulator, and he knows that he's got Londo right where he wants him.
Right. From Centauri Prime, we jump over to Babylon 5. And it seems that Delenn sure is happy. Something's happening.
Yeah.
Planet seems to be happy.
Yeah.
power surge, I guess.
Yeah.
Call that a little happiness.
Yes.
Sheridan is sure happy.
Yes.
Apparently, the female audience was rather happy too with the with the shower.
That was a funny little feint, because it cut from Susan, talking about Susan. Where is Susan? Okay. And then you go to these quarters, and you move through these quarters, and that slinky music they were playing.
Right.
It looked like they were going to sneak up on Susan in the shower, and it wound up being Sheridan.
It
was like, oh, man.
And we find out that Drawl is cranky. But that makes him happy.
Yeah.
And he's been watching Sheridan, it seems.
Yeah, he seems to be watching a lot of things.
A whole lot of things.
Yep.
One interesting thing that came out of the interaction there was he was listed as the custodian of, or described as the custodian of the planet. Yet he makes it clear that you don't take custody of the planet. The planet is what takes custody of you.
Yeah, that great machine, it does. And we saw how that works in the first season.
Now, this is not the Drawl that we saw in season 1.
No, the Drawl we saw in season 1 was ready to take off and just leave and go off on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very old, and his life was
a whole lot shorter.
Yeah, his life was over as far as he was concerned.
Right, that was Louis Turenne, who's going to be back next year in the show. So his appearance, though, is extremely different from John Shuck.
Yeah.
And I love the way they describe it. Drawl says that the machine gave him back his youthful appearance of 30 years ago.
Yep, he's younger now.
And that's how they explain the character change.
Yeah.
And I guess 30 years ago, Drawl talked a little bit more because this Drawl sure likes to monologue.
Oh, yeah. He is really impressed with the sound of his own voice. He's very dramatic.
Yes, he is. And he invites Sheridan down for a visit whenever it's convenient.
Yeah, and convenient means ASAP.
Yeah, like Sheridan should have already been down there.
Yeah.
Oh, and he can bring another.
Yeah, I wonder who he's going to bring.
Yep. You think we'll find out before too long?
I believe we will.
The war against the Centauri, where the Narn are concerned. Not good.
Yeah, it's going very badly for them. They are not holding their own at all.
Is it just me, or am I the only person that just, in a way, I don't, at this point, feel that bad for the Narn? They were the ones who wanted the war. They were the ones who did everything in their power to push for it. So it's, when you keep asking it, when you spend most of season 1 trying to create this mess, and you finally succeed, and it's not quite working out the way it was expected, the old saying, be careful what you ask for, comes to mind.
Well, then, too, though, you got to think about this in a little bit different light. We do not have a level playing field here. I mean, we have Londo with Morden and Morden's associates with an extreme unfair advantage.
Indeed.
And so, who knows what the outcome might have been.
Yet, how many times have the Shadows actually intervened for Londo?
Yeah, well, and then look back, too. Turhan came to Babylon 5 to apologize and make amends and atone for everything. But could not do that. Jakar was receptive, ready to listen, and... Except
for the fact that he was going to assassinate him.
Well, yeah, until he found out exactly what was going on, remember?
Right.
So the war would have the war would have never happened otherwise. So, you take into consideration that basically Turhan was overthrown, more or less, by his own illness and by, his chancellor being stabbed, other things, and the playing field.
Yeah, there was some assassination going on in the Centauri court.
Yeah, and the playing field not being level because the shadows are involved, and I do kind of feel bad for the Narn.
Well, by the end of this episode, my opinion's going to shift very, very significantly. So, just to give you that bit of a heads up, in some ways, and bear in mind too, the word I've used to describe Jakar frequently up to this point had been slimy.
Yeah.
Throughout the first and second season, and he really comes off that way in The Gathering, in that pilot.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
So I in a way, it makes me wonder, and Delenn kind of challenged him on this. When Jakar was seeking aid, it's like, when you consider the things that you've done, are you surprised no one wants to help you?
Yeah.
I almost wonder if the intent was up to this point to not be too sympathetic. But like I said, by the end of this episode, that's going to swing around.
Right.
And part of that swing around here is Jakar's uncle is going, basically, he's going to use the old football phrase, go for a Hail Mary.
Oh yeah, it's going to be all or nothing in one strike. We got to get this done. We got to turn things around.
Yep.
And this is the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. And I had wondered at one point, Goresh said it was Goresh 7, just to answer my own question that I had asked you earlier.
Mm-hmm.
No, the first episode was Ragesh 3.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the same place.
No.
I'm going to claim old age, in a slipping mind.
Just remember, I'm older than you.
Sheridan and Delenn running into each other in the hall and compare notes, and Delenn's attitude is like, oh, good, when are we leaving?
Well,
she's almost Skippy this episode.
Well, yeah, she's going to see her friend, her mentor.
And mentor. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Jakar's uncle, I have a feeling, is going to be in for a bad day.
Oh,
because
very bad day.
Yeah, it seems that the Centauri have found out about the attack somehow, and Rifa wants Londo's forces to take care of the Narn fleet.
Yeah.
Wonder why? Why can't the Centauri fight their own fight there?
Well, it's very convenient. Now, Londo is resisting this. Londo wants out of this relationship with the shadows.
Yeah, he's not comfortable with the plan at all. And part of it's not just the shadows. Rifa is going to be using mass drivers to take out the Narn homeworld. They're going to skip everything they're going to skip the fight with the Narn and go straight for the Narn homeworld.
Well, then that's why they would want the shadows to take care of the Narn.
Yeah, when you heard about the plan of using mass drivers, had you heard about them before this episode?
Yeah, I did.
It's like old science fiction.
Right. Yeah. Heinlein
used them. I thought Larry Niven might have referenced them in some of his sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Heinlein's used it. Basically, you don't worry about energy weapons or anything like that. You just pick up a few asteroids along the way to the planet you're planning to go after and throw rocks at them.
Right. You dislodge asteroids from their orbits and send them plunging towards the planet. What a diabolical thing.
Yeah, really, really. I mean, look at what a couple of small comets have done just in recent years.
Well, it would not take very many asteroids striking a planet to devastate it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, between that and the shadows, Londo is not really, like you said, he's definitely not comfortable. Finally, he does agree, though.
Reluctantly, but, what choice does he have? Because Rifa flat told him, you're in favor now, but that could change.
When he's Londo's got the resources to take on the entire Narn fleet single-handedly.
Yeah.
Does he not realize how empty a threat that is?
Well, I don't think that Londo would want to launch an attack against his own planet. He would tip his hand, first of all, and everybody would know that he is not the one with the power. It's Morden
Yeah.
and his bunch that have the power. So
And we're going to kind of see this whole path unfold eventually, and somewhat in the way you've described.
yeah, Londo is the monkey in the middle here.
Yep.
You know, he doesn't have any way to go that's good.
No, he doesn't. Except I feel even less sympathy for him, at least at this moment. I even feel less sympathy for him than I did for Jakar.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
By the way, who's missing here?
I don't know. Who's missing?
His conscience.
Oh, Veer.
Veer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Veer wasn't around.
There's no conscience to there's a huge degree to which Veer is Londo's conscience.
Yeah, and Londo is on Centauri Prime, so I imagine Veer would be back at Babylon 5 taking care of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of back at Babylon 5, Garibaldi doesn't seem to trust Draw. It's a bit of an extended exchange, but not quite there.
Now, that's a surprise. Garibaldi doesn't trust anyone.
Yeah. And he's upset about the change in appearance, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, Garibaldi...
How do you even know it's the same draw?
Garibaldi, he likes things cut and dried.
Right.
And if there's going to be secrets or mysteries, he wants to be in control of them.
Makes for a good security chief.
Well, yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm. So, right now, we're at the point where everyone leaves. Rifa's taking Londo out for the final assault on the Narn homeworld, which Londo likes even less than everything else. Sheridan and Delenn leave, and everyone's going to their appointed places, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
I just had a thought come into, Londo is getting more upset, and in my notes, my ink smudged, and it looks like Lando.
Yeah.
And the line just popped through my head. This deal is getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Well, Jakar gets a warning. Franklin gives him some information that comes from a dying Narn, that he suspects that the Centauri might be skipping everything in between and going straight to the Narn homeworld, based on reports that he got from that Narn, and the fact that the Centauri broke pattern.
Yeah, this is a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
For Jakar. I mean, that would be very difficult.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that med lab scene, the injured Narn. It was the whole wing of the medical facility has been taken over by the injured.
Yeah.
And from the look of it, that's not an exception. That's sort of par for the course now.
Yeah. Well, then we get Delenn.
Yes.
And Sheridan.
Delenn seems to be studying colorful metaphors.
Yeah, what did you say? Absafragan-lutely? No, fracking, that's BSG.
Yeah.
And this is not the BSG podcast.
It wasn't it was Absafragan-lutely.
Right.
Yeah, she's almost as good as Nimoy on this.
Yeah, Sheridan's reaction to that was great.
Yeah. She did that almost as good.
Well, the only no, actually she did better because it was kind of in context where Nimoy was, the hell you can't.
See, this is where I'm going to disagree with you. And yes, folks, you're hearing it right. The Babylon 5 geek is telling the Star Trek geek the Star Trek got it better. The fact what made Nimoy's so fantastic was it was so completely out of context.
Yeah.
And it was total straight deadpan Spock delivery.
But it didn't have rhythm. If you are going
What are you, a musician or something?
If you're going to spew a string of oaths, there is an order that works. Okay? And if you don't do it right, it sounds awkward.
Spoken like a musician.
Well, of course. I mean. So
God.
my vote is Delenn did it better.
Okay, listeners, send in your thoughts. we'll put this up to you guys. Who's right? We'll have to make sure we get a question out on that on the Facebook page.
Okay. All right.
Switching back to something a little more serious, Jakar's trying to get his uncle to call off that attack. Not much luck.
No, he is absolutely determined to follow through with his plan and is not listening to anything.
Yeah, it's like they're determined. He's determined to follow it through regardless of the cost. And you think he knows Jakar well enough to know Jakar's not going to be frivolous about it. What were you about to? So we're now back on the planet, the Great Machine. I love that. You've changed. First words out of
Yeah.
That's kind of a running gag this episode, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems to be. Well, we've got that now. We know. Okay.
Now, you had already mentioned it seems that Drawl knows an awful lot about what's going on. He kind of spills the beans on Sheridan's whole little conspiracy, what Drawl ends up calling a conspiracy of light. And it's kind of funny watching Sheridan. Sheridan doesn't lie very well.
No, he's not good at that at all. Well, that Great Machine, as we learned earlier in this series, the Great Machine has a very long reach.
Yep. And he actually likes what Sheridan's up to. In fact, he likes it well enough that he gives him the planet to use.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get, we get the title of the story here. It's the title is The Long Twilight Struggle, and that's how Drawl describes this. And do you have a clip of that? We could talk about it, but it's got to be listened to.
This has been a hard and trying year for you, Captain Sheridan. It might be helpful for you to know that you are not alone. And that in the long twilight struggle, which lies ahead of us, there is the possibility of hope.
Yeah. And that orchestral, that string list that you just heard.
Mm-hmm.
Hard cut straight to the Narn getting wiped out by the shadows.
Yeah, and Jakar loses his uncle and a number of warships and warriors, and there may be hope for Sheridan, but there doesn't seem to be very much for Jakar.
No, the Narn fleet is completely devastated. Though they did manage to injure one shadow vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that kind of surprised me. A single spine getting shot, disabled.
Well, a lucky shot in a vulnerable place.
Yeah.
You get a lucky shot in the right spot, and I suppose that's going to, it could be devastating.
Yeah, I guess, if you think of those spines almost like a cat's whiskers,
Mm-hmm.
the cuts between the battle and Jakar's prayer, that is just beautiful cinematography. That is beautiful storytelling, and it is just so intense.
Yeah, it puts you on the edge of your seat for sure.
Yeah. The one question that I've got, though, why do these capital ships turn to make a jump? Is there some concern about not having enough open space in front of them to create the jump point? But why not just angle yourself and take advantage of your momentum?
You got me. I don't know. Maybe it's more dramatic that way.
Well, that it certainly is, particularly when you see the shadow vessels firing those destabilizing shots into the jump points that are used to destroy those last couple ships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's not going to be the only time we see a technique like that used.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, but it was a really intense scene. It was lots of boom, it was lots of battle, but it wasn't done in a way that you typically think action sequence. It was just a beautiful piece of storytelling.
It was well cut, yes.
Mm-hmm. back on Babylon 5, well, actually back on the planet Epsilon Uriandi, we find out that Drall's not quite alone. And with the destruction that's going on, Drall seems to sense it. Like you said earlier, he's got a very long reach.
Oh, yeah.
And something bad is happening, and he tells them they have to get back, and for Delenn to introduce him to the, quote, others.
Yeah.
Who are the others?
Hmm.
Think we'll find out soon?
Yeah, probably.
Yep. We know who the others aren't, or isn't. Zathras!
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, he's yelling for Zathras. That was a big deal on the online community back in 95-ish when this first showed, because Zathras was such a popular character, even though it was just that one little two-parter, not a lot of screen time. He ended up being really popular, and everyone got excited about it.
Oh, yeah.
And while Sheridan and Delenn are getting back, Babylon 5 gets word about the attack on Narn, and that they're using mass drivers, and they are ready for riots.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've seen what happens before when difficult things in this war come up. I mean, we've actually had murders and riots before, so
right.
It would be concerning.
The attack on Narn, that was absolutely chilling.
Oh, yeah. And then the that picture of Londo standing in that window.
The reflection.
Yeah. He looked absolutely appalled.
The look on his face was, this is my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And it was.
Yeah. Now, that scene was filmed in a really neat sort of way. Mm-hmm. And Troy Rudder, a couple years ago at Ozfest, I interviewed him, if you recall, and that interview is here as an episode earlier. So it's really neat to hear his description of how this worked, how they did this scene. You mentioned we just got through with a panel, and you mentioned that you happened to make it over to the stage every now and then while they were. Do you have any interesting, neat stories to tell?
Well, the very first time, before I was even offered the job at Warner Brothers, just because I was a fan, and one of my friends was the studio teacher on Babylon 5. He was one of that core group that I was talking about, and there was some offhand remark that Joe had made to me on a news group, was like, well, if you're ever in town, let me know and you can stop by. And so, of course, I immediately booked a plane ticket and called them on it. And so I set this set visit, and I went around and took some pictures around. But it's probably my favorite time visiting the set because it was so new, but it was also the episode that they were shooting that day. It was the long Twilight struggle. And we went into this big area. It was this big open part of the stage, and they had 2x4s on the floor, and there was electronic gizmos scattered between the 2x4s, and then they poured dry ice in it to get it smoky. And there was a guy off to the side by the fire marshal who had a nail in one hand and electronic contacts. I can't think of what they're called, where you screw wires in. Okay. It's escaping me. Whatever those are called. And they'd ring the bell and say action and everything. And they had a camera going high speed filming. And the guy would run the nail across the contacts. Mm-hmm. And what it was doing was it was exploding Christmas tree lights under the fog. And when you slowed that down, that was the bombing of Narn.
Wow.
Right? And so you can't see this, but I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
But, okay. But that was so cool to see. And then the very next scene, we went out, and I was they were setting stuff up, And then they said, okay, we need to clear the shooting area. And it was, I went back behind where the telecine was to watch it. And I think they cleared everybody out of the room. And it was Andreas doing his scene during the bombing that they intercut, where he's praying and doing those things. And it was just so powerful. I mean, his performance was just, I watch it now and I'm like, wow. I mean, that's a very powerful moment, seeing with Londo and the ship watching Narn being bombed. It's just so amazing. And to be there during that time was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Christmas tree lights, yeah. If you want to bomb a planet, just use Christmas tree lights.
Christmas tree lights. Wow.
That was a piece. That was a piece of just filmmaking that really should have gotten an award of some sort.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And based on the newscast, that attack went on for 4 days.
Yeah.
Planetary bombardment on that scale.
I don't know how that could have gone on for 4 days without completely obliterating everything.
Largely, from the description, it almost did. The Narn were largely driven underground from the sound of it, and where we're at Narn in future episodes, it's never on the surface. But even the Vorlons complained.
Yeah, I would imagine.
At the end of it, though, with the planet totally devastated, the Narn finally surrender. In fact, Jakar is given advance warning of that, and he is sent to ask Sheridan for sanctuary.
Yes, they got to keep him. He is part of the ruling council, the Kari. But they don't want him to be out of the picture. They want to keep Jakar in the picture.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Now we close everything back up. Everyone has been away. Now everyone is back. And Londo calls for a gathering of the council. Mike is barely civil to him.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if he's not civil to Londo because of who he represents or because of Londo himself.
I don't think Mike has seen a difference between the two.
And that would be basic Mike too.
Yeah. Mike has seen enough of Londo to know Londo is not just a bystander just from his activity on Babylon 5, but Londo back in his, that the purple jacket tended to reflect more innocence in season 1. For this scene, he's back in his innocent purple jacket and announcing the surrender, or at least the terms of the surrender. Do you have that particular clip? This is harsh. This is really harsh.
It is.
The Narn regime has offered complete and unconditional surrender. The terms imposed by the Centauri Republic are as follows. 1. The ruling body, known as the Kari, will be disbanded, and its members subject to arrest and trial for the commission of war crimes against the Centauri.
Earth requests the right to send observers to these hearings.
That request is denied. 2. To prevent further acts of terror by the Narn against our people, from this day on, the penalty for the murder of any Centauri by any Narn will be the execution of 500 Narns, including the perpetrator's own family. 3. A provisional ruling council appointed by my government will take up the responsibility of rebuilding a more civilized Narn government as a colony of the Greater Centauri Republic.
Is there anything else?
just one thing. Because the non-homeworld is now a protectorate of the Centauri Republic, we reserve the right to determine who can speak for Narn. As a result, Ambassador Jakar may no longer represent the Narn in any official capacity whatsoever. His appointment as ambassador to Babylon 5 is hereby withdrawn. And as the only member of the Kari still at large, Citizen Jakar will return to Narn for trial.
I'm afraid that's not possible. Prior to this meeting, Ambassador Jakar asked for sanctuary on Babylon 5. As it is within my province to make such decisions, I agreed.
Yeah,
That was dark.
that was dark. And the only one with the cojones to actually stand up to Londo was Sheridan.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you
And
what,
Delenn.
yeah, but Londo was scary serious now for probably the first time in the entire series.
In that extent and in that sense, absolutely.
Well, when Sheridan says, we request permission to send observers, and Londo looks at him squarely and says, that request is denied. I mean, wow.
Though at least it seems like Londo does kind of have an idea when to back down, because he gets a little bent out about Jakar's sanctuary, but he knows he's speaking to a brick wall where Sheridan's concerned on that.
Well, diplomatically, there's not a thing he can do.
As we're about to see, they're not paying much attention to diplomacy.
Now, the only other thing that they could do would be to send a request to have him extradited as a war criminal, and you know where that's going to go.
Yep.
And it's not going to go anywhere.
Not for a couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But frankly, even then, EarthGov, rather than following along, is just trying to pretend Jakar doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah. The throwing out of Jakar, at least from the council, I don't think Sheridan was going to back down on that one either.
No.
In fact, the look on Sheridan's face was he was about to have Londo thrown out. But
well, and you saw no doubt the reaction of the gallery.
Uh-huh.
The League of Non-Aligned Worlds. I mean, they were appalled.
They were terrified.
Yes.
Like I said, the only person, the only people in that room that weren't afraid was Sheridan, and of course Kosh. But I don't think Delenn was scared, but she was certainly appalled.
Mm-hmm.
This went straight to the warrior in Sheridan, but Jakar takes it out of his hands and de-escalates that potential confrontation with just a beautiful monologue. And we've done a lot of clips tonight, but they're worth it. Do you have this one too?
Yep.
No dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arms forever. There is no greater power in the universe than the need for freedom. Against that power, governments and tyrants and armies cannot stand. The Centauri learned this lesson once. We will teach it to them again. Though it take 1,000 years, we will be free.
Yeah, and after what the Centauri did, it may just take 1,000 years.
But even Londo looks unnerved by Jakar's promise.
Well, I kind of interpreted it a little differently. He still looked defiant. It's like, yeah, this is just talk. Big deal. but he maintained that stone face of his back behind
Yeah.
the car. So,
And now we get to the wrap up of all the pieces here. On Londo's side, it turns out that they are annexing several small worlds.
yeah. Well, what would you expect?
Londo's concerned. It's like, what has he created? And he really has. I mean, more than anything, he's the one who's created this.
Oh yeah, he's brought all this together single-handedly under the guise of making the Centauri great again.
Mm-hmm.
And they are being made great again, but it sure isn't great for everybody else.
Yeah. Sheridan meets with Jakar and promises his aid, and even knowing the cost and what it means, offers his hand, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out who Delenn's others are. The Rangers.
Yeah. Yep. The people in the shadows that watch and report back and kind of just keep track of things.
Yeah, and on the one hand, you think of the Rangers as warriors, fighters, whatever, but you look at the people in that room. It's not just the ones that are out there fighting, doing the actual fight. It's accountants, lawyers, everyday people as well. Short, tall, fat, thin, young, old, that are committed to fighting the darkness and fighting for freedom.
And they don't even really know what they're fighting yet.
No, but they know what's coming. They know something's coming. Then they have an idea that it's just how dark it is. We see it ourselves, the darkness coming. And heck, there's enough places in the world today that you can see the darkness coming and people being ready to stand up. It goes back to something that you've said in the past about the timelessness of the theme in the Babylon 5 story.
Oh yeah, it's played out many times throughout history.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why this series does so well. It's a universal theme, well told. But Delenn grants him. You mentioned this before. Delenn grants him equal authority over her cell of this army of light. And have you noticed, whenever Sheridan says he doesn't know what to say, he usually follows it up by something rather profound.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's a good speech maker.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll need to be.
Right.
Now, one question I do have, though.
Yeah.
All right. Sheridan has granted immunity or sanctuary to Jakar.
Uh-huh.
Sheridan has offered aid to Jakar.
Uh-huh.
Sheridan is taking an equal part in command of the Rangers, at least the cell attached to Babylon 5, and no matter the cost. You think maybe he might be overstepping his authority a bit?
With regard to granting asylum?
Mm-hmm.
No. Though one could argue that he should have consulted Earthdome. However, the timing and the urgency of it would arguably make that difficult.
Uh-huh.
Offering his assistance, probably. He probably is overstepping his authority, though he is making that as a personal offer, not as EarthGov. Nevertheless, he's in uniform making that offer.
Correct.
As far as the Rangers, his no matter the cost where that's concerned, he is so completely overstepping his authority.
Oh, yeah, his neck is out there.
He's crossed so far over into, forget court-martial. You get spaced for where he's going there.
Yeah, and this not only is setting up for the end of this season, but this much right here, just this very end part, is setting up for the future.
This is setting up for the rest of the show.
Way down the road. Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing piece of writing.
absolutely
storytelling.
incredible. And yeah, I mean, what more can be said about it? It's you've got it.
Yeah, and it's a must-watch episode. Absolutely.
If even if you are skipping in and out throughout the series, Long Twilight Struggle is an episode that is a must-watch. I mean, even if you want it on a standalone, just to see what really good television writing and really good storytelling is.
Yeah.
You can probably follow it without the entire series behind you, but it'll definitely leave you a little empty in that you don't get everything. But I mean, it'll throw some. If you want to get an idea, if you haven't watched the show, but and I know there's some of our friends that listen to the podcast who are just sort of in and out of the show, watch this episode. Yeah, there will be some spoilers for it, but it won't ruin it for you, and you'll see what you're missing.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
Well, and now we look forward to the next episode, another big, huge fan favorite where Delenn undergoing a test.
Comes the Inquisitor.
Yep, that's up next.
Oh, wow. Speaking of dark episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And where the darkness is coming from is going to make you go, say what?
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose we've just about wrapped this one in a ribbon and send it
yeah,
on.
and I know we've gone rather long for our typical episodes, but my gosh, this is just such a fun one to talk about.
Oh, it is. Great
So,
show.
Any closing thoughts or comments on your end?
No, this has been a real roller coaster ride up to this point, and it's not over yet. So that's about all I can say.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of add into the backside of this, so it was just, like I said, a lot of fun to watch. And I know people are used to the episodes coming out on a regular basis. Life has intervened. Jim and I haven't been able to get together as regularly as we've wanted to, and we've had to miss a couple weeks. And I couldn't have asked for a better episode to come back in to talk about to get us back into the swing.
Yeah. Well, should we ask the question, was there boom today?
Oh, there was boom, 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 boom all over the place. 4 days worth of boom if you happen to have been an Narn.
4 days worth of boom. You think there's going to be boom tomorrow?
Of course. It doesn't matter if it's today or tomorrow. There's always a boom tomorrow.
Yeah, there's going to be some big time boom coming up.
Oh, especially in that episode after the next. This is going to be some serious boom. Well, friends, it has been a lot of fun. So, good night.
Yep, so long.
Bye-bye.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast @gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project Podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.